Hey guys.
Hi everybody.
So tonight we got another Sunday live video. We're going to be talking about a topic that we get a lot of questions about. So in about 4 weeks we're leaving the country to go to Europe for 4 months, and whenever we talk to people about that, they always ask, how can you take so much time off of work? How can I do that? And last year we took a similar trip. It was 5 months and went around the world. So it's a topic that a lot of people are interested in, and hopefully we can shed some light on that. Whitney's going to introduce us, and I'm going to get this video shared in a few different groups.
Yep, so we are here from Travel Therapy Mentor. My name is Whitney Aiken.
And I'm Jared Kazaza.
And we are both traveling doctors of physical therapy. So some of you guys may be familiar with us and may have tuned in the past. So thank you for joining us again tonight. For those of you that are not familiar with us, we do these videos pretty much every week on different topics related to travel therapy. So this week's topic is a little bit different. It's not your typical ins and outs of travel therapy. It's more how can you leverage being a travel therapist in order to take more time off to travel for leisure and maybe travel internationally like we've been able to do. So again, Jared and I are coming at you. We are here in Virginia at our current travel therapy assignment. We are originally from Virginia as well, so we're working kind of close to home for this contract. And we have been traveling physical therapists for 4 years. We've traveled on the East Coast mostly, and we've seen every state up and down the East Coast. But in our 4 years of being travel therapists, we have traveled to, close to 15 countries, I think, outside the US, which has been really amazing. And people always ask us, you know, these trips that you're taking overseas and out of the country, are those for work? And the answer is no, they're not for work. That's all for leisure, all for fun. So last year we took a trip for 5 months. We were gone from July through December 2018. We went to 11 different countries in 3 different continents. So we went to a few countries in Europe. We went to Morocco, which is in Africa, and we spent the majority of the time, 4 months of it, in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, those types of countries, and we finished in Hong Kong. So it was a really amazing experience, and we decided it was so great we were going to do it again this year. So this year, our trip is only going to be in mainland Europe, and we're going to 15 different countries. So we leave in just under a month. We leave on May 17th, and we'll be gone until August. And we're starting in Western Europe, I guess. So we're starting in Spain and Portugal, and then we're going to work our way east into Eastern Europe, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, places like that, and then we finish in Italy. So we're super excited. These are all these places we've never been before. The only place that we're going to again that we've been is Germany, and I've been to Italy, but Jared hasn't. So we're super excited, and we've been getting some questions about our trip and how we're able to do that. So that's why I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about how you guys might be able to do it too if y'all decide to be travel therapists, or if you are already travel therapists, how you can kind of arrange your schedule so that you can take more time off. So I see a few people are joining on. Jared is not being antisocial. He's sharing this in a few different groups so that more people can join the conversation. If you are signing on, I see Rebecca's in here, Rachel, hi Jeff, Stacy, Lauren, thank you guys for joining us. If you are joining in, just let us know who you are. Are you a current travel therapist? Are you someone who's looking into doing travel therapy? Please just let us know in the comments. We'd love to know who's joining us tonight. So we'll get going here in just a second once Jared gets everything up and going in a few of our different groups, travel therapy groups. Hi Naya. So Naya is a current travel therapist, and I know she also enjoys some international travel. So Naya, you might already be privy to some of the things we're going to talk about today, but hopefully we can help you out a little bit too. My throat's getting a little dry, so sorry about that. So basically tonight we wanted to just talk about some ways that you can use travel therapy to be able to not only travel for work, but travel for fun too. So let's get started on just talking about the number one thing is being able to do travel therapy. So if you're watching this and you're not a therapist, there are certainly ways later in the video that we're going to talk about that you could do travel hacking or be able to travel frugally and be able to travel out of the country more. But the big key thing here is for travel therapists, how it's going to be so much easier for you to be able to do this.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what...
There's 2 big reasons why it's easier as a travel therapist. The biggest one is that you make more money. So that means that you're able to save more and take more time off. The other big thing is that there's unlimited time off between contracts. So when we finish this next contract, we finish in 3 weeks. We have no set date where we're going to go back. I might not even work for the rest of this year. Whitney might start back in September. We just don't know. So basically, we have the rest of however long we want to travel, as long as we have money to fund that. And so
Right.
that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, and this is a huge difference than your, peers that are also therapists that have chosen to take permanent jobs, because in a permanent job you only get a set amount of PTO, and sometimes you're even hassled by your clinic by wanting to even take that PTO because it's hard on the clinic and it's hard on the patients. They're like, oh my gosh, you're taking 2 weeks off next month. How are we going to cover your caseload? How are we going to cover? And so it's so hard to take more than a week to 2 weeks off as a permanent employee of any kind. And I know most of you understand that struggle, and you have, peers or people that that are like, I can't take that much time off of work. How do you do that?
Yeah, and the other thing too is, as a permanent employee, even if you took 2 weeks off, that's a short period of time. If you're taking, especially a trip to Asia, it might take 36 hours to get there. And after you pack everything, get on the plane, get to your destination, you only have 10 days or so there before you have to come back, try to get back to your own time zone, and adapt to getting back to work. So that's a short trip, and those short trips can be almost as expensive as a long trips in some cases.
Yeah, and we're going to talk some more about how to travel frugally and how even doing a longer trip you can actually save a lot of money, because I'm sure you guys know either you've taken a trip yourself for a week and spent thousands of dollars, or people who do. They'll go to Europe for 7 to 10 days and they've spent thousands of dollars just to go for that short period of time, and they only had a quick time. Part of that, they could have been dealing with jet lag, they could have gotten sick, they could just be really tired and not even get to enjoy that full 7 to 10 days. So travel therapy really sets you up to be able to have more extended periods of time off. And like I said, you're not set down into a certain time, like you have to start a new contract at this date. As long as you can afford to, as long as you've financially planned ahead, then you can take off as much time as you want.
Yep. I wrote an article probably about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year, about how to avoid burnout as a therapist. And one of the major ways that I think that you can avoid burnout is by working less, right? That should seem pretty obvious, right? So a lot of people work a lot of hours, they only get maybe 1 or 2 weeks off a year, and they get burnt out really quick, especially with high caseloads and things like that. So as travel therapists, in 6 months of working, we can almost make as much as a permanent employee would work in the whole year. So that means if you work 6 months and take 6 months off, that's a great way to avoid that burnout situation, and also a great way to see some places that you probably would never see otherwise.
Absolutely. So kind of going back to making more money, there are a lot of people that are kind of naysayers, and they'll say, well, I don't really think I actually would make that much more money as a travel therapist when you factor in expenses. So that's what we're also going to talk about, is how to manage your expenses so that you really do come out ahead financially. Because if you do it right, you can make a lot more, and like Jared said, almost double of that you'd make at a permanent job. So there's a lot of cool perks. So for those of you guys that have joined on, will you just say whether or not you're a current therapist or if you're a student? And then if you are a student, are there any PTs in here that are getting ready to take the boards? I know that's coming up in 2 days, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So congrats to you guys that might be taking the boards soon. And thanks for joining on with us tonight, if that is you guys. So we're going to transition and talk to a little bit about being frugal, which is easier for some, harder for others. But this is a major factor on, even if you decide to become a travel therapist, keeping the expense side of the equation low so that you can take advantage of the higher pay and not waste it.
Yeah, so that's been a huge factor for us, and that's why I can afford to take so much time off now, Whitney as well. So there's some major mistakes that people make, I would say. And being a travel therapist, I think, is a great introduction to living pretty frugally, because you don't have so much like the lifestyle inflation that a lot of the peers might have. So things like a lot of people, when they graduate PT school, they settle down, they get married, they buy a house, they buy a new car, they might have kids, and a lot of travel therapists aren't doing all those things. So you might still have an apartment that you're renting as your tax home, so your costs are cheaper there. You might still drive the car that you drove in grad school, so you have lower costs there. What else?
Yeah, not buying a new car, just going out and wasting a lot of money, upgrading your wardrobe, buying a lot of clothes, spending a lot of money out on drinking and things like that. There's a lot of like little areas that some people spend a lot of money, whereas other people tend to save money by eating in or pre-gaming before they go out, and not buying a lot out. So there's just different ways that different people might spend more versus save more.
And that's been a huge factor for us. Let's see, things like, so along with the higher pay, we have a lower taxable rate, which means we pay lower taxes, which is a great thing, a great part of being a traveler, especially if you're only working 6 months a year or 3 months a year or 9 months a year, like whatever you choose to do. Your taxable income will be really low, so your tax rate is almost negligible. And that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, so just kind of a key point here is especially if you guys that are students, I see a lot of you guys said you're students, if you decide to jump into travel therapy right away as new grads like we did, just not getting sucked into suddenly I have this paycheck, so now I can spend more money. If you instead just continue to be frugal, continue to live a little bit like you're a student, I mean, you can spend a little bit of your money. Of course, you can spend it however you want, but if you want to be able to save a lot and be able to earn bank this time that you can take off to have experiences, then you need to cut back on your spending so you can have the money to do so. So don't be sucked into buying a new car. Don't be sucked into buying a whole new wardrobe right when you get out. If you want to buy a house, maybe if that's what your goal is, but if your goal is to be a little bit freer in the beginning and save up a lot of money, or a lot of you, your goal might be to pay down your student loans as quickly as possible, you need to continue to be frugal. And that's what we've done, and that's how we've come out ahead so well financially in our first 4 years out of school, is we did not make any of these big purchases. We kept our spending low. We don't eat out that much. We don't drink out that much. We splurge here and there, but we try to still keep our costs very low.
Yep.
The other thing I want to talk about in terms of like strategizing as a travel therapist. So a lot of people will say, well, I don't really think I'm going to make that much more as a travel therapist because you have to pay for 2 homes basically. You have to pay for your tax home payment at home, and then you also have to pay for your travel assignment. So you want to take into account how you can keep expenses low in both of those areas. So one way you talked about,
one major thing is that if you can rent a room in your home state for your tax home, that's a great thing to do. Like especially when you're in your hometown, if you have like a friend that you could rent a room from, or a family member you could rent a room from, that's a great way to save on costs and not have like a whole house or an apartment you're paying for.
Right.
And usually coming out as a new grad is a great time to do that because you don't have a lot of stuff that you've accumulated for the most part. So it's a great time to just move into a small area, even like a studio apartment. Anything you can do to keep those home costs low so that you don't spend so much and you can save more to take longer trips.
And then the other thing is that your travel assignment, trying to keep your housing costs low, people often ask us about how do you find housing when you're a travel therapist. A lot of times if you jump into like a short-term rental, if it's like a corporate housing or a furnished place, they can charge out the wazoo for that. It could be $2,000, $3,000 a month for a furnished 2-bedroom apartment. So if you can, again, kind of follow some of these principles of like still living like a student and, saving your money, and be willing to stay with people, be willing to rent a room in a house, be willing to do an Airbnb or a Craigslist ad. It's nice to have your own space, but if you can save money on expenses, you can put way more money in the bank. And if you think of it this way, the less I spend, the more freedom I have.
Yeah.
So the less I spend, the more money I have, and that's the more freedom I have. I don't have to work as much throughout the year. I don't have to work 52 weeks a year. I could afford to work only, 9 months of the year and then spend the other 3 months either all at once or 1 month here, 1 month there to be able to travel for fun or go home and see my family or just do whatever you want to do, relax.
Yeah.
So if you think of it that way, it's easier for you to justify in your mind, okay, I could rent a room from somebody. I don't need a whole place to myself. I could pay for this $500 room in a house versus paying $2,000 of my stipend for my own place.
Yeah, and another factor to consider on the travel assignment, and a factor that would cause you to rent something maybe a little smaller than you're used to, is how much really time are you going to spend at that place? This is something we found as travelers for the last 4 years, is that we're working, we're going to the gym. On the weekends, we're usually taking weekend trips. In the evening, sometimes we go out and do things. We might go to dinner. We don't spend a whole lot of time at our actual house that we're at or wherever we're living on the travel assignment.
Yeah.
So you might be able to get away with a smaller place than you're used to when you're traveling.
Speaking of which, we're in our current travel assignment housing, which happens to be somewhere we found on Craigslist, which is a basement apartment in someone's house. So our hosts are upstairs, and they rent out their basement, and we just barely see them, and it was a lot cheaper than renting an apartment. And it's been really great for us. We have our own little space, and we're barely here, and it doesn't bother us at all.
Yep. So something else we did, transitioning out of that, is the first 3 years that we traveled almost back-to-back contracts. So we worked as much as we possibly could. We took some time off. We took weekends off, obviously. I did work some on the weekends, but for the most part, we took time off to travel home sometimes on the weekends. We took a couple weeks off each year, but for the most part, we were working back-to-back contracts. And that allowed us to save a lot more than we normally would have.
Yeah.
A lot of travelers will choose to take 2 or 3 weeks or even 4 weeks off between contracts, which is great, and it gives you a lot of time to get to the new place, but that takes away from how much money you're making that year, which means that you can't accumulate as much savings as we were able to in the first few years.
Yeah. And that's a big part of like a personal choice. Like there's a lot of people that really right away kind of want to adopt the lifestyle of only working a little bit here and there. And some people, their main goal with getting into travel therapy is just to be able to see, maybe they want to only do it for a year or two and they want to see as many places as possible. So we know a lot of travel therapists that kind of say, I've got a year and a half or 2 years, I'm going to do this. I want to go to Hawaii, I want to go to California, I want to go to Texas, and I want to go to New York. So they bob around from these different contracts. Well, then they end up having to take like a week to 2 weeks off between jobs just to move and then to not feel so rushed. Like they'd like to get to their assignment a little early, scope out their housing, get settled in before they start. What we did instead is we actually chose to work on the East Coast only. For our first 3 years, we toyed around with the idea of going to the West Coast, but it just kept working out better for us each time to stay in the East Coast. And we actually lived in an RV. So we were actually able to move like really quickly between assignments and take almost no time off between assignments for our first 3 years. And that's also how we saved a ton of money and made a lot of money the first 3 years so that we could then the fourth year, the end of the third year, I guess, take the 5-month trip that we did because we had just been saving that whole time.
Yeah, and so 5-month trip we actually took 8 months off. It was like 7.5 months, I think, between the last year or the end of last year and the beginning of this year. So there's no way we could have done that if we hadn't saved for the first few years and accumulated as much money as we could. And so I think a great plan for like new grads or new travel therapists is to travel for a while, try to work nonstop as much as you can, like whatever your tolerance is, of course, and try to pay off all the debt you have, save some money, and then if you don't have student loan debt and you get rid of any other debt that you have, you can easily survive on 3 to 6 months of travel contracts. And then you can spend the other part of the year however you want, either, back in your hometown, just resting or traveling or going
taking road trips across the U.S. even. It doesn't even have to be international travel. It could just be fun road trips across the U.S. Yeah. And that's another way to look at it too is, we're just telling you one way to do it, one way that we've been able to leverage being a travel therapist to do this. But some people, those times that they take between contracts to travel across the U.S., to take road trips between assignments, to them, that is their adventure. So maybe they're taking advantage of the fact that they can have 2 weeks off between jobs and see all these amazing places in the U.S. And that's another way to look at it is that's the flexibility of being a travel therapist that you can do that. And it's like you didn't have to work in Wyoming, but you got to drive through Wyoming. And you didn't have to work and where the national parks are out west, you got to drive through them and go hiking and all that stuff. So there's a lot of cool ways that you can leverage your career as a travel therapist to have more time for leisure.
Yep. Yeah, so there's a few different ways to approach it, of course, but the way that we preferred was to save as much as we could, have as much safety cushion as we need. Right now, we each have a lot of years of expenses saved up, so that if we wanted to take off as much time as we want, then that would be perfectly fine. But I think the other way is also great. If you wanted to take, starting out as a new grad, if you wanted to work 9 months and take 3 months off and travel internationally then, and not have to wait for 3 years like we did to save a lot of money, you can also do it that way.
Or 1 month here and there. Like I know Naya was on earlier, and I know Naya has gone out of the country for, I don't know exactly how long. Naya, if you're still on, let us know, like 2 to 3 weeks or a month. Some people have done that where it's not, you don't have to do a whole 5-month trip at once. A month would be wonderful. Our friend Dylan just recently took 2 months off, and he did a month in Thailand and a month in Bali. And that was awesome for him. So, just having this flexibility is kind of the bottom line, but you do have to be frugal in order to make that happen. You can't just say, okay, I make this much so I can spend this much. Don't look at it that way. Think, how much do I need to spend to get by, and how much extra can I put aside to pay off my debt and then be able to save to travel and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yep, so I see a few new people have signed on. Hi, Ryan. We got Ryan Miller and Ryan Kirtley, hello. We've got our few students that are on. Rebecca's a new grad OT. Thank you guys for joining. If you guys have questions as we go along, please just comment below and let us know what your questions are. We'd be happy to answer them. We've got a few more points here that we want to go over. So the big thing was being a travel therapist allows you this flexibility. Secondly, being frugal allows you more flexibility. Third, the big thing that we have been able to use is travel hacking and credit card rewards. So we want to talk to you guys a little bit about how we've used that to be able to travel for these longer trips, like the 5-month trip we did last year and the 4-month trip that we are doing this year.
Yeah, so right before I graduated, I'd done some credit card bonuses in the past, but right before I graduated grad school about 4 years ago, I got really into credit card sign-up bonuses. And that was one of the smarter things that I've ever done, I would say. Not only has it made me a decent amount of extra income, but it's also gotten us a ton of free travel. So our trip last year to Asia, both Whitney and I got free flights there and back. Our trips to Europe this year, both flights are going to be free there and back. Last year, I think we stayed in like 16 hotels, 16 free hotel nights we got. And then this coming trip, I think we're going to have 22 free hotel nights. So that is a huge thing to keep expenses low. So travel therapy, flexibility combined with travel rewards, getting free flights, free hotel stays is it's an awesome combination.
Yeah, because any of you guys that have traveled internationally know that some of the biggest expenses are your airline tickets. So if you already have this combination of, I have a flexible schedule, I can take 2 to 3 to 4 weeks off to a couple months off. Once you're over there, once you get the flight and go out to Asia or to South America or to Europe, Australia, wherever you want to go, once you get there, if you can just stay there for a while, you can find plenty of ways to save money and live on the cheap while you're there. It's just the big thing is the plane ticket to get there and the plane ticket to get back.
Yeah, especially in Asia. So the ticket to get there is really expensive, and once you get there, and then the kit back is really expensive. But once you get there, everything is so cheap. So on this trip last year that we took, we spent a month in Europe and then 4 months in Asia. And for that entire trip, on the Fifth Wheel Physical Therapist website, I recorded all my expenses for the whole trip, and I ended up spending less than $6,000 for 5 months traveling internationally. And the big part of that was the free flights. But that tells you how cheap it is that you can get by in Asia. And we still did everything we wanted to do. So it wasn't like that was being ultra frugal or anything. I was still spending quite a bit of money in terms of how much value we got out of it.
Yep, so that's really, I just want to reiterate what Jared said. So last year people are like, how do you afford to travel for 6 months because or 5 months, it's so expensive. When I just go on this week trip, I spend so much money. Well, the big thing is the airline miles. So once you get the ticket for free, once you're there, it's really cheap. That's also why we picked Southeast Asia for our first big trip, was because it's so cheap. Jared only he tracks his expenses way more to a T than I do. But for 5 months, he only spent $6,000. That's including everything: the tickets, the hotels, food, excursions, all kinds of stuff. That's less money
so
than
$1,200 a month, which
probably would have spent being in the U.S.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm sure you guys, if you keep any kind of budget, probably spend more than $1,200 a month as an individual. I know I probably spent a little bit more than that. I don't know exactly how much. I bet I probably spent $8,000 or $9,000 for the whole trip, but still
it's really cheap.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and that's a huge advantage of those long-term travel situations, because like Whitney was saying, if you stay 3 days in an area, you're paying full price, and it's expensive. We were spending like a week or sometimes 10 days in each place. Sometimes we stayed 2 or 3 days. It just depended. But at a week, especially on Airbnb and things, you get a discount for a week. So, and sometimes it can be like 40% discount. And in northern Thailand, we stayed in one place for 28 days, which we got a month-long discount for that. So it was really cheap. So yeah, long-term travel is just a lot cheaper on a day-by-day basis than short-term travel. And I think that's a really, really cool part of being able to take these long trips, having so much flexibility with travel therapy.
So I want to talk a little bit about how we do credit card rewards. So some people will say, oh, I have a credit card that earns cash back, but like that's not really that much. Or I have a, United Airlines card that I earn like a couple points back or whatever, but it's not really enough for like a round trip ticket. So the big thing that Jared has found is the most bang for your buck, if you're brand new to travel hacking or credit card rewards, the most bang for your buck is doing sign-up bonuses. So you get a card that has an initial sign-up offer and you do the spending required. So usually it's $3,000 in 3 months is a pretty typical amount that you'll see. And they'll say, okay, if you spend $3,000 on this card for 3 months, in the first 3 months of having it, then we'll give you this lump sum of points. So a really big one that we were able to use last year that was super helpful for us was the Delta American Express Gold Delta Gold Sky Miles card.
Yeah.
So that one was, the initial sign-up bonus was 60,000 Delta miles. So we each got the card at separate times, and we planned this way in advance. So we do what's called credit card churning, where we'll get one card, we'll meet the sign-up bonus, put it aside. Get the next one, meet the sign-up bonus, put it aside. So we have been sort of banking these points for like over a year. So we each got the 60,000 points, and we were able to find rewards flights using points instead of using cash, where the one-way flight from the US to Europe was 30,000, and the flight from Asia back to the US was also 30,000.
I think it was 40,000.
Okay, so yeah, but we could have gotten one. I think we upgraded, but I think we could have gotten one for 30,000. So for just that one credit card sign-up bonus, I basically got myself a round-trip ticket, and for his one credit card sign-up bonus, he got a round-trip ticket.
Yeah, an important factor to mention here is that when we're getting these cards, we're meeting the sign-up bonus, we're not carrying a balance on the card, right? So we're not paying any interest on the card. That's what people think of with credit cards, is that, oh, you know, you're getting these rewards, but it's not really worth it because you're paying interest. Well, I've had, I think, probably in the neighborhood of 50 credit cards now, and I've not ever paid interest on any of them, because as long as you're paying off the balance in full each month, you don't pay any interest. So, you know, you use the card for your everyday expenses, you meet that sign-up bonus, you pay it off each month, and it's basically like free money, free travel. It's really, really awesome thing to do.
Yeah. Rebecca says she loves her Delta card. The Sky Miles don't expire. Like on other cards such as American Airlines. That's a good point, Rebecca. Did you use your Delta card to be able to pay for your flight to Asia last year? Because we were just chatting earlier, and she said that she went to Asia as well. If anybody else is interested in the Delta card, we do have a referral link that we can send you for that one, and we can kind of link to that in the comments just to show you which offer we were talking about. But there's a lot of good other good offers out there. I can't talk tonight, but Delta seemed to work pretty well for us for those international flights. We've also used American Airlines. Our trip this year, I think it's American Airlines that we're using.
We're using American Airlines for one flight and Delta for one flight. So it just depends on where you're going, which card is better. There's a lot of ins and outs of booking reward flights, but you can find a lot of information online. I've written several articles on the Fifth Wheel PT website about credit card sign-up bonuses and rewards and cash back and all kinds of things.
Yeah, so we can share some of those articles and information for you guys. Sorry, Lauren, the card that we used before was the Delta Gold Sky Miles card, which is an American Express card. This year, we've also, for our upcoming trip, we used the American Airlines.
Citi has an American Airlines card. And Barclay does too.
Something else important to note is we kind of started doing these sign-up bonuses a while back without really knowing what trip we were going to use them for. So we've just kind of been banking points for a long time and just sort of having them sit, and then we'll wait until later to be like, okay, what can we piece together now that we have these miles and these points? What can we piece together? And sometimes we'll kind of plan our trips around that too. Like, what do we have? How can we use it? Because you can't always use the rewards. Like, you can't just say, oh, I really have this trip in May planned to go to Hawaii. Like, you can't always make it work.
Which is another great part about being a travel therapist. You need some flexibility there, because a lot of times the best reward flights are during the week. And if you only have a week off, you're not going to want to leave on a Monday or Tuesday and then come back on the next Monday or Tuesday, because then your days don't really work out well. So I think being a travel therapist and having that flexibility is really crucial to be able to utilize the points as best as possible.
Yeah. So Rebecca says, I actually got my card after that trip when I was purchasing a flight to Florida. They gave you $200 on your first flight. I think I've heard of that offer. Did you also get the 60,000 points, or was it not a points offer? It was just a cash bonus, Rebecca. Naya says, my issue is that I don't spend $3,000 in a month in purchases to meet the rewards, which is what that's a lot of people's concerns too, Naya.
Yeah, and it's not 3,000 in 1 month, it would be 3,000 in 3 months. There are some bonuses that are really high, but we normally don't do those. So 5,000 in 3 months is pushing it for us, for sure. 3,000 in 3 months we can do, because we have somewhere around, between the two of us, we usually have $1,000 a month in expenses that we could put on there. But there are situations where we've had, we're doing like multiple sign-up bonuses at the same time, and things like buying gift cards to Amazon or gift cards to the grocery store or to gas stations, gift cards that you know you'll use in the future, are really helpful there.
Yeah, so there's some different stuff you can read about online. to different ways to strategize and try to meet the spending. In a worst case scenario, you could ask a parent or a friend, like, hey, could I pay this bill for you with my card and you can give me the cash? Or like Jared said, you could go and buy gift cards for something that you know you'd use later and it'll count as spending on your card.
Yeah, so Airbnb gift cards are huge there. I usually have a pretty big balance of Airbnb gift cards from that. Like if I can't meet a spending requirement, then I'll buy Airbnb gift cards, load them onto my account, so they're there whenever I use it, and I use Airbnb all the time. So that's a great way to kind of like, you're shifting some of your spending into the present to meet the bonus, but then you use it in the future. It's a good way to do it.
And we are honestly a little bit crazy with it. Like we're always working on a credit card sign up bonus, and we really push the limits. Like it's either I'm doing one or he's doing one, and we combine forces. But you could easily just do 1 or 2 a year and get a lot of bang for your buck and not have to do as many as we've done. Like if you just got the airline miles, that would already cover your plane ticket, and that would be a huge expense off your back. So we got a couple other comments coming in.
Travis said you can use your credit card on Venmo with only a 3% charge and use that to pay for like duplicate expenses and use that or pay off for travel stay. Yeah, so there are situations in the past where we've been really desperate to meet a spending requirement or the deadline's coming up, and we'll just transfer money on Venmo because that does count as a purchase, but you pay that 3% fee. Yeah. Normally the 3% fee is nothing compared to how much you'll get from the sign-up bonus, so that's usually worth it for sure.
Yeah. So just kind of a key point here is using credit card rewards for airline points. You can also do sign-up offers for hotel points. One that we recently did that was really good for us was the Hilton Honors Card. We got a lot of Hilton points, and Hilton has this cool perk where if you book 4 nights in a row staying at one of the Hilton hotels, you get a 5th night free.
It's only if you have like gold or diamond status, which this card came with diamond status, which is like their top tier status.
Right. So this was a huge perk for us in our upcoming trip because in Eastern Europe, like in Poland and where else? Hungary.
We're using it in Vienna, we're using it in Slovakia, and I think not Budapest.
A couple of the Eastern European countries have really low cost of living, so some of the hotels are really cheap. So I don't really know what a hotel might cost in Hilton Honors points in the US, maybe 30,000, 40,000 points per night, whereas these hotels were 10,000 points a night. So that was already super cheap. So 4 nights, we only used 40,000 Hilton Honors points, and I had like 200,000.
And then you get the free night. So
and then you get the 5th night free. So instead
5 nights for 40,000 was a really good deal. So we got that one sign-up bonus. I think we're going to use that for like 19 or 20 different nights in hotels.
And on top of the points, they also give you a free night certificate, and those are really cool because when you get a free night certificate, it doesn't have a point value, it's just a free night anywhere. So we're actually using one of our free nights at a Waldorf Astoria hotel in Rome, right?
There's one in Rome. We're also using one, I think, in France, maybe Paris.
Yeah. Naya said, do you have a link for Hilton? I liked them. Yeah, I think we still have a referral link for Hilton, so we can attach that one. So yeah, there's just some different ways that you can earn airline points, hotel points. Now, the other thing that Jared kind of alluded to was beyond those things, to save a lot of money and be able to travel frugally, Airbnb has been really good for us. And I wanted to make a note. I know a lot of people have used Airbnb. Some people were skeptical of it when it first came out, and more people are getting into it. One thing I also want to mention with Airbnb that we didn't realize until a couple months ago is that some people are really skeptical to stay in a room in a house at Airbnb. And we want to say that we've had nothing but good experiences with staying in rooms and houses, and you save so much money.
But we should mention that we're picky about it. So we're only staying at places that have like 100 reviews, and almost all the reviews are good. We're not going to places that are, for the most part, we actually have a few times like 20 reviews and stuff like that, but normally we're looking for places around 100 reviews or more that have all good reviews, and you can read what people said, make sure that it's clean, all that. But if everything checks out there, then yeah, you can save a lot of money by staying in a room in a house, especially in places like Europe where prices are more expensive.
Right.
In Asia, we stayed almost exclusively in like little small efficiency apartments, basically.
They were like $10 a night.
Yeah,
like crazy
or
cheap.
less.
Yeah, so there's just some really good ways that you guys can save money once you've taken the flexibility of being a travel therapist, been frugal with your money and savings, and then find ways to travel hack or save money once you're on your trip. There are so many ways that you can think outside the box, and you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a 6-day trip to London. It can be so much cheaper than that.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's any other points. Okay, so something else I wanted to talk about traveling abroad. So people are like, how are you going to save money in Europe? Europe's expensive, right? So some other ways that we found last year in our trip to save is just being frugal when it comes to, again, eating and drinking and activities. So the experience is already there. Gosh, you can say, wow, I've been to Europe for a whole month, or Asia, Southeast Asia. I went to Thailand for 3 weeks. What an amazing thing. The adventure is there just when you step off the plane. You don't have to spend a lot of money to be like, oh, I went on this tour and I did this thing that cost $100. Nobody's gonna care, and you're not gonna care that much because there's just so much to see and do that's free. So we always try to take advantage of free activities, just walking around, sightseeing.
Museums, almost every city in Europe has like a free walking tour, so you just tip at the end, but it's not like it's not a tour that you're paying $40 for or something. You just leave like a $10 tip and
yeah, Google free walking tours, like almost any European city you go to. I think we did one in Dublin, a bunch of other cities. Just Google free walking tours, Berlin, and then you just tip whatever you feel appropriate, and you don't have to pay $50 to go on a tour.
Yep. So museums, just walking around the city. We've had such awesome experiences just walking around and looking at things, right? Most of these cities are extremely walkable. There's really awesome things to see everywhere. So, if you're just taking Ubers or cabs back and forth, you don't see a lot of that stuff. But we really enjoyed walking around cities. It's good exercise too, which is great.
Or just finding cheap stuff, just going on and looking for coupons. Like, you can save a lot of money by just looking on Groupon or looking on TripAdvisor and reading stuff instead of just signing up for the tour or the activity from the brochure in the hotel lobby or the brochure at the travel agent that you walk by. If you just do a little research on Google, you can save a lot of money that way. So just free or cheap activities is kind of the bottom line there. And then not feeling like you have to eat out at a nice restaurant every day of your trip. Sure, you can do it some, but you could also, stop. We stopped at like the local Aldi a couple times in Germany, which, how cool, an Aldi in Germany, and the Lidl too. And we got like sandwich meat and stuff for lunches. And we don't really eat breakfast anyway, so just sort of ways like that. Or I would, in Asia, I would always go to the 7-Eleven and get like a big Chang beer, and that's $1. And you can drink that for really cheap instead of going out. Of course, in Asia, everything's cheap, but there's just ways to save money while you're there.
Yeah. Utilizing grocery stores. So most places that we go, we don't have a refrigerator or anything. Some places we did. But you can always go to the grocery store and, like Whitney said, get lunch meat, make sandwiches, definitely save money that way.
Yeah, I mean, we would just go get like lunch meat and baguettes and then a beer from the Aldi and then go sit in the park and have lunch for, $3 instead of going to a restaurant for 20.
Yep.
So just some different ideas for you guys to think about. We've covered a lot of ground. If you guys have questions for us about how you can become a travel therapist, how you can take more time off, what ways that we've done it, please comment and ask us, or you can send us a message after the video.
Yep. Travis said, Superhost for Airbnb. Are you a Superhost, or are you just staying with Superhosts? Because the Superhosts are always pretty much a good bet that they're going to be pretty good people. So Naya asked if we ever used Groupon before for booking accommodation. I don't think we ever have. It's we almost always either use Airbnb, which I usually get discounted Airbnb gift cards. I wrote an article about that. So normally our Airbnbs are already cheap, and then we get like usually between 10 and 20% off of the price already by buying discounted gift cards, which is makes it really cheap. And then the other thing we do is the free hotel nights. So between those two is how we do almost all of our accommodations when we travel.
There was another website, it's called booking.com, that we found that a lot of people use overseas for finding cheap accommodations in addition to Airbnb, so you guys can check out booking.com.
Yep.
Lauren wants to know, do you find Airbnb people give discounts for booking a longer stay? Have you ever messaged people and tried to book off the site, or you try to stay on the site?
So we always stay on the site. I do know that people will sometimes try to book off the site. I don't think it's worth it, at least for us, because I talked to a few of the hosts that we stayed with on our trip last year, and they only keep like a 2 or 3% fee. It's like pretty low compared to like Booking.com can be 10 or 15%. So it's not going to be a huge difference in cost. And most of the people on Airbnb offer a discount for extended stays because it's easier for them. So we just find a place that we like, and then if they do offer a discount, great. If not, then we that might factor into our decision. We might pick something else, but for the most part, we find somewhere we like, and almost always there's some kind of discount there.
Yeah, it's usually the 7-day or the 1 month. So you're really only going to benefit if you're staying somewhere a week. So maybe think about staying 7 days instead of 6, or a whole month.
We have had a situation before where we weren't sure if we want to stay in a place, and we sent them a message asking like, oh, do you have this? Are you close to this? And a lot of times the hosts are pretty, depends on the person, but sometimes they can be desperate to book the place. And they'll say, oh, well, I'll give you a discount, and they'll send you like an offer that's valid for like 24 hours. And if you book, you get like $20 off or something like that, which is pretty cool.
That happened to us in Morocco because it was a newer listing, but it was like one of the only ones that it was really in proximity where we wanted to be, but we had a lot of questions. We were kind of unsure. And she was like, you know, I'm from the US, my husband's from Morocco. I would love to have more Americans come and stay at my property because she wanted reviews. So she was like, I'll offer you a discount if you stay here. And it was actually a really good experience. And so that was interesting.
Yeah.
Hi, Susan. And hi, Travis. Travis says about the Superhost. He stayed with Superhost before. Yeah, that's a good thing to look for on Airbnb.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So Naya has booked off or negotiated off the site. How did that go? Went okay?
And Naya, is this for travel assignments or for international travel? Let's see. Travis says he's with Furnished Finder for staying on my travel assignment, and these are for loaner stays, like 30 days to 3 months, longer stays. And I was wondering, during your research, did you find something like this overseas during your vacations?
So yeah, I'm sure there's sites like that. We, for the most part, don't want to stay in a place that long. Normally on these trips, like in the future, we might find places that we like that we'll go back to for longer term. But even 1 month is a long time to stay in one place. So for the most part, we're staying a week, maybe 2 weeks. Only one time did we stay 4 weeks.
Yep.
So we haven't done too much research on that just because it doesn't really fit our plans right now. But in the future, I'm sure there are sites like that.
Yep. So just kind of to recap a little bit of what we talked about tonight, for those of you guys that might have joined in later, the biggest 3 points that we talked about tonight is being a travel therapist allows you a lot of flexibility in higher pay and scheduling to be able to travel more for leisure, whether that's international travel or within the States.
Those are by far, in our opinion, the biggest advantages of travel: more pay, flexibility with time off.
Yeah. So the first thing is becoming a travel therapist is the biggest thing that's going to allow you more time off to travel the world or travel the U.S. Secondly, being frugal, so being wise with your money, keeping your expenses low, continuing to maybe live like you're a grad student or, you know, those types of things. Don't blow all your money. Instead, save your money to have great experiences.
Yeah, you can splurge some. Like we splurge a couple times a week, but it just...
Not all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the third thing is travel hacking or using credit card rewards and various different techniques to save money so that you can have travel for cheaper and not blow the bank to be able to travel. So do you guys have any questions? If you do, just leave them below or feel free to send us a message after this video. If you guys would just give us a thumbs up or give us a heart below so that way more people can see this video and join in the conversation next time.
Yeah, if you have any friends that are interested in traveling or interested in traveling internationally cheaply, tag them in the video. I'll post some links to some of the articles I wrote about traveling, reducing expenses while traveling internationally and things like that. Yeah,
we write a ton of articles. Jared writes so much about saving money, paying off student loan debt, travel hacking, credit card rewards, that sort of thing. I write a lot about our adventures. So like our upcoming trip to Europe, I'll be writing every week about the different places that we go. So if you want to read about what we're up to, and then if you want to go on fifthwheelpt.com, we wrote about everything last year. So every stop on our 11 country trip last year I wrote about.
Yeah, and this coming trip, I wrote about all the expenses last time. This coming trip, I'm going to write about all the expenses, how much I spend in each place, which I enjoy seeing that stuff. I don't know how much everyone else enjoys seeing it, but I think it's really cool to have an idea of how much other people are able to spend in different areas. So.
Yeah, and then also if you guys are tuning in and you want to learn more about just how to become a travel therapist, if you're a current student or a therapist that's thinking about getting into travel therapy, please just comment below and we'd be happy to send you some information on getting started with travel therapy or the companies and recruiters that we work with. If you guys want to get in touch with them, you can just comment recruiter below and we'll message you with some recruiters that we like, or you can send us a message on our site, Travel Therapy Mentor, and we'd be happy to talk to you about how to get started with your travel therapy journey. Because there's a lot of cool perks to being a travel therapist, and one of them is just having this more flexibility to be able to travel the world. So we got a few comments coming in. Morgan says, do you spend the full 13 weeks of your contracts at the Airbnb or do you move around?
We would not move around unless it was absolutely necessary. We want to just go somewhere, get settled in, and be there the whole time. Unless there's like a significant issue, there's no way we'd move during a contract.
So Morgan, I don't know at what point you joined in. At some point we were talking about Airbnb for international travel, And then some other people were talking about using Airbnb to find an apartment on your travel assignment. Those are two totally different things. We have never used Airbnb personally to find a travel assignment place to live. Some people do. I have heard some people say, like Naya said, she'll book like her first week on an Airbnb and then just scope it out and then try to negotiate with that landlord her full 13-week stay if she likes it there off of Airbnb. Just negotiate a rate with them off the website. Some people have had good success with that. Some people would just go ahead and book the full 13 weeks on Airbnb up front if it is a long-term rental. Some people prefer to get to the city before they book anything and go see things on site. We lived in a camper for our first 3 years, and then a couple assignments we've used Craigslist to find short-term housing.
Which can be sketchy, but we've had good luck with it.
Yeah.
We're pretty careful about who we're talking to, where we're staying, and all that. It's been good.
Yeah, but as far as using Airbnb to travel internationally, we've had really good success with that for staying 2 days up to a whole month.
Sue asked, is there any place you've been where you had a bad experience? She travels alone. Internationally, I would say the only place that I felt even one bit uncomfortable was Morocco. I would say if I was a female traveler by myself, I probably wouldn't go there. I think Whitney probably agrees with that. Not that it was really dangerous. It was just, it was very different culturally.
And I don't know, I've heard some people that went to Morocco and just loved it by themselves. I actually was there for a women's health retreat with other females, and we were all meeting as a group, but some of them traveled there by themselves to meet the group, and I traveled there with Jared to meet the group. But there's just a lot of cultural differences, and you want to cover up and that sort of thing because it is a big Muslim population there, and they are more conservative. So there was those sorts of things, but also just a huge culture shock for us because we'd never been anywhere like that before, and that was like towards the very beginning of our international trip.
Yeah. Everywhere else we went, though, was great. I would not hesitate going by myself to anywhere that we went in Germany or England, Ireland, Scotland, anywhere we went in all of Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia was probably the safest I've ever felt anywhere, even in the US. So
Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital of Malaysia, we felt a little less safe there because it's a lot more of a big city, and it just had this big city vibe with a big mixing of cultures where we felt a little more like you need to watch your pockets and that sort of thing. Whereas like other parts of Southeast Asia that are a little more rural and small, like everybody's just so nice. You could still maybe have to worry about pickpockets and that sort of thing, but we didn't feel unsafe at all.
Travis asked recommendations for places to go in Thailand. So we love Thailand. If we didn't have family in the US, we would probably live in Thailand. It's a really awesome place there.
We spent 9 weeks of our whole 5-month trip there.
9 weeks. So our favorite places, we really like Chiang Mai in northern Thailand. We like Chiang Rai, which is even further north Thailand. It's like similar to Chiang Mai, but it's a little smaller city. And then we really like the islands in the south. They were amazing. So Koh Lanta was a really awesome island.
Krabi.
Yeah, Krabi.
Yeah.
Railay Beach is awesome area.
Just gorgeous, amazing.
You pretty much can't go wrong with any of the islands in southern Thailand, and there are a ton of islands.
But definitely our favorite places were in the mountains in the north, Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai, and then in the south, Koh Lanta, which is a small island. Don't tell your friends. Soon they're going to be building a bridge from the mainland to the island, and it's probably going to get a lot more populated, but we just loved it down there. It was amazing. It was one of the best weeks ever. Yeah. We also really liked Vietnam. If anybody's interested in going to Vietnam, we loved a small town called Hoi An, which is by the beach, but also has an ancient UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is beautiful. Yeah, a lot of cool places in Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia is amazing, cheap, a lot of stuff to see, really nice people. Definitely somewhere I would go back to. Yeah.
So thank you guys for joining us. Susan says, I was in Thailand alone, Phuket and Koh Samui, I think is how they say it. Koh Samui. So that's great, Susan. We love Thailand and we felt so safe there. A 3-week trip. Travis says he wants to make a 3-week trip to Thailand. I think a 3-week trip would be great. I think 1 week is just too short. 2 weeks would be pushing it. I think 3 weeks or more in Thailand would be
3 weeks or more is
perfect.
Great. They allow a 30-day visa with no fee or anything like that. So 30 days is a great amount of time to spend there if you can. But yeah, 3 weeks is great.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for joining in tonight. If you guys have more questions about how to get started as a travel therapist, how to be frugal and save money, how to travel internationally or even within the country, frugally, we'd love to help you. If you just want to send us a message after the video is done, we'd be happy to talk to you.
Yep. Thanks for watching, guys.
All right, we'll see you guys next week on Sunday. Don't know what the topic will be yet. but
Next Sunday at 8, we'll talk about
We'll let you
something
know.
interesting. So if you guys have any suggestions, let us know.
All right, good night, guys.
See ya.